Hi AP, this is Ms. Bastelka, and I want to talk to you about effective transitions in your synthesis essay and beyond. I'm going to be making reference to the sample essay that I handed out in class that you can also find posted to this same assignment on Google Classroom. It's the essay entitled Thinking Freely and Aiming High. Let's first start by reviewing this introduction, which is the first paragraph of that handout that I'm talking about. It probably looks familiar to you because this introduction was one that you already saw when we talked about compositional risk. We talked about major premises, which is right here, that's the major premise, and claims. And we talked about how introductions need those three elements. I want to draw your attention to both the claim and the major premise that you see here, because you're going to need to review them in order to understand how the transitions work later in this essay. So as you can see here, our claim is that college is worth the investment because it inspires young people to think freely and aim high. This is based on this major premise up here, that many people think that college isn't worth it because very often they can't afford to pay back the debt that they accrue while in college. Keep those ideas in mind as we look at what makes an effective transition. So an effective transition restates the main idea from that body paragraph. An effective transition also connects the main idea back to the claim. And this is something you're pretty familiar with, the idea that a warrant connects the evidence, which is the main idea, back to the claim. So of course transitions need to do that, but they also need to preview the main idea of the next paragraph. And although they include transition words such as indeed, in fact, therefore, in addition, however, those sorts of words, transitions are not limited to individual words. In fact, your transitions should be more than one word. They should be a sentence or two. And transitions should be at both the beginning and the end of each of your body paragraphs. So let's take a moment to look at a sample body paragraph. I know this is a really dense slide. If this is a bit too much for you, you can look at the handout, which is double-spaced and a little bit easier to read. I encourage you to pause your video here, and while you read, I want you to identify the evidence from the text first, and then the explanation, and from there we'll identify the transitions that are in this paragraph. So pause your video now and read and identify the evidence from the sources in this paragraph. Okay, hopefully you reviewed this paragraph and you've identified that the yellow is a piece of evidence from the text. It says, according to Michael Roth, and then it cites one of those sources from the 2014 synthesis prompt. A liberal education teaches freedom, by example, through the experience of free research, thinking, and expression. The green stuff that's highlighted here is all explanation of that evidence. It's that warrant that you're used to doing, connecting your ideas back to your claim. What's not highlighted up here and down here are transitions. So let's take a moment to talk about each of those transitions. So the first transition here at the beginning of the paragraph states there's no doubt that a primary purpose of a college education is to make money. However, the ways in which a college graduate makes money vary widely. It's not necessarily true that a college graduate will earn their maximum income within a year or two of graduating college. In fact, as with most people who work, they will make more money as they move through their chosen career field. This is a transition because it's neither directly addressing the evidence from the source, and it's not directly addressing the claim. It's really bridging those ideas, and it's warming the reader up to the evidence that's to come. So it does connect to the prompt and the major premise in the prompt, that idea that making money is what makes college valuable. And it does provide reasoning for a particular point. It is warming us up to the idea that free thinking allows us to eventually make money in our careers. And it really sets the reader up to accept evidence. All right, so it previews for the reader why they should accept the evidence that is about to be presented in the paragraph. There's also a transition at the end of the paragraph. In the paragraph it states, in this way, a liberal education is the most important building block of a person's financial success. Indeed, the determination that led to the engineer's success is probably partially made possible by the sense of potential that attending college gave him. If you were to keep reading that little portion at the end in the middle of the second page that previews the third paragraph, you can see that that paragraph is all about how college allows people to aim high, that going to college allows people to set their goals high. This transition does connect to the prompt and it does review reasoning for the point there, but it also sets the reader up to understand the next point. It warms the reader up for what's going to come next. So, this is your quick and dirty slide for what transitions should do. They should always connect the ideas back to the claim, and really you should add here, connect it back to the major premise. If you're having trouble figuring out what to do to connect your ideas, you want to refer back to the major premise and make sure that your body paragraph is clearly connected to that major premise. Transitions should review ideas in the paragraph that you're going to be talking about, or if they come at the end of a paragraph, preview the ideas in the next paragraph. They should be more than one word. So one word is not enough to be a transition, and they should be at both the beginning and the end of paragraphs. Very often people think one word at the beginning of a paragraph is a transition. Unfortunately, it's not. So this has been a brief review of transitions and how to use them in your essays. Please also look at the sample essay that I referenced throughout this PowerPoint. Thank you.